We're good. We're recording. Okay. So we are returning from executive session. It is 6:36 p.m. and I just need a motion to resume our public meeting.
Make the motion, Sonia. It's Carrie.
Thank you. And a second.
This is Eric. I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And all those in favor? Carrie?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And myself, Sonia? Yes, and we are back in our open session. Okay, so Jim, if you could screen share, if you have a flag, possibly. Okay, and if everyone can just, for this, unmute yourself and say the pledge with me, because I never know whose sound is on or off, or if mine cuts out. So if we could please just stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
The flag
of the United
States of America.
United States of America.
To the republic
And to the
Republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Just did that in the
we can
round.
all mute ourselves now, please. Thank you. It's tough. Our next September meeting will be back in person. So when school officially starts, so hopefully that helps us out a little bit. We will continue still offering the Zoom option for people, but so we actually have.
Is it just me that
Public
Sonia?
hearing on the district conduct.
It was Sonia. You were all garbled.
hear
Is it
me?
just me?
No, it's not just you.
Okay.
No,
Just try it again, Sonia.
everybody's going.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, how do I sound now?
Better.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. So next on our agenda is the public hearing on the district-wide code of conduct. And I believe, Dr. Gosh, are you going to talk about this
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Mrs.
a little
Masika.
bit? For
Yes.
everyone, yes? Okay,
Yes,
great.
thank you. Okay, so thank you all for this opportunity to conduct this public hearing of our district-wide code of conduct. Please know that this is an annual requirement, and we are not asking the board to take action this evening. That will take place, if all goes well, at the September 8th board meeting. Next slide, please, Mr. Whalen. Thank you. So the district-wide code of conduct consists of 18 components. All of these components are mandated, and the mandated components are included in the code of conduct that is linked here into the presentation. The code of conduct is also uploaded into board docs, and the draft code is on our website. Again, please know this document is a legal requirement. Please also know that we are in the middle of a multi-year process to make this code more restorative in nature, which is a multi-pronged effort. Next slide, please, Mr. Whalen. Thank you. Also important to know, the code and how we're presenting it to you does not represent any new policies. It's basically a collection of our existing policies. We did add some language that reinforced that these policies also apply to a digital or remote environment. That way it's very clear to all involved that regardless of the mode of instruction that we're in, the code of conduct still governs. And also please know that the students will still receive their building level handbooks. So in terms of process, this is the public hearing where we announce that we're putting it up in a draft form. Again, the code is in board docs. It is also on the main page of our website. On the slide deck, which is here, posted in board docs, and also on the website, is a link to a Google form. If you read through the code and you have some feedback about ways that you would like to see it strengthened or changed, please submit a Google form, or you can also email me at mgosh@brewsterschools.org. We ask that anyone with feedback submit that by September 5th. That way we can prepare for the September 8th board meeting. So when we come back and we're in person on September 8th, I will share that feedback with the board prior to any vote. And that concludes the public hearing. And are there any questions from the board?
The student handbooks. I guess some kids will be hybrid, some kids will be distance learning. How are we distributing them? Is it all like it's an email?
I believe all of the handbooks are digital, so they're posted, and when they're finalized, they will be posted on the school-specific site, and they'll also be sent to students as well.
And since you said you updated policies in regards to COVID distance learning, that's already included in the code of conduct.
Good question. So we do have some policies up that are specific to reentry, and I can talk more about those policies specifically. What we did do is we looked to see if any of the policy language needed to change in the code of conduct, and the answer is no. It references certain policies, but it doesn't pull, it's not necessary for us to pull any of the proposed changes in the policies into the code.
Did you just say like code 5510 and you changed it in the book, then it's fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, the link for the feedback that is in the slide that you just showed, is that going out through, what's our new system called? Parent Square.
Parent Square, yes.
Is it going to go out that way?
Yeah, so tomorrow morning we can send out that notification with I believe we do that each year with a cover letter that says public hearing was last evening. Here's the code. If you have any feedback, please submit it here. Thank you.
Just,
Okay. Thank you, Ms.
Can you hear me
Masuka.
okay?
Yes.
Okay. So just one last check. Any other questions from the board on the code of conduct before we move on? Okay. We now then on to administrators, and we start with Dr. Gosh, if you'd like to go again.
If it's okay, due to the length of the agenda, I will reserve my comments for the reentry presentation.
Okay. Dr. Harrington?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Masika. So this evening, the board and the public will note that we will be recommending several new staff members to join our Brewster family. We're pleased to again recommend Ms. Sarah Oricchio and Ms. Stephanie Oricchio and Ms. Monica Mrozik, all of whom fulfilled important leave roles last year at CV Starr. Additionally, we will be recommending Ms. Jasmine Price, a Brewster graduate and Manhattanville graduate. Ms. Price holds dual certification in special education and early childhood education, and we are certainly pleased to recommend her for appointment at CV Starr as a special education teacher this evening. Additionally, we're pleased to be recommending Ms. Danielle Maddock for appointment to JFK as a special education teacher for kindergarten. A graduate of Iona College, Ms. Maddock comes to us with over 8 years of experience working with students in early childhood pre-K settings. I'd certainly like to recognize our administrative team, Dr. Zamperlin, Dr. Kennedy, and Ms. Andriello in particular, along with our assistant principals and directors for their good work in securing such high quality candidates for these positions, particularly in light of the myriad of challenges each building is facing as they diligently prepare for the start of the school year and students and staff's return to campus. Instructional appointments aside, the board will note 2 critical recommendations for appointment for classified employees. Tonight, we are recommending Ms. Donna Palmiero for senior clerk in food services, replacing the large shoes left behind by Ms. Meg Shack's recent retirement. Ms. Palmiero has previously worked, at Southeast Library and comes to us highly recommended for her professionalism and her work ethic. And finally, we're pleased to recommend Ms. Michelle Mutner to the position of Assistant Supervisor of Transportation as a trainee. Under the provisions of Putnam County Civil Service, Ms. Mutner is being recommended for this position, having worked in the district for over 15 years as a bus driver. Most recently, Ms. Mutner has been employed as a part-time driver in our department while working full-time as a paralegal for a local real estate firm. A Marist College graduate, Ms. Mutner is a Brewster alumni and resident, and we're certainly excited to recommend her for full-time employment in a position of leadership within our transportation department. And of course, a warm thank you to Ms. Mary Smith, our Supervisor of Transportation, who worked diligently to fill this important vacancy. So with that, that concludes my administrative comments for this evening.
Great, thank you so much. Mr. Carlson?
Hi, good evening. I'll attempt to be brief. So our Finance Committee met this morning to review one agenda item this evening, the tax warrant, which is an annual board resolution which directs the tax collectors of each of our 3 towns, Southeast, Carmel, and Patterson, to levy the necessary taxes to continue our operations. Also reviewed at that committee meeting were our audited but not yet issued fund balance results. And again, I want to acknowledge publicly the thorough analysis performed by Elena Nash Graham, our school business administrator, and Susan Morgan, our district treasurer. As far back as the March month end, they were able to project a net change in fund balance of about $3 million. I'm pleased to report that after all of the dust settled, our fund balance actually increased slightly more than that, but very close to it, $3,091,000. A lot of decisions were made based on that projection. So again, I just want to acknowledge their hard work and effort in making sure that they were helping the district and the Board of Ed make important decisions that led toward a successful budget vote. So again, our Finance Committee met this morning to review the tax warrant, and that will be presented to the board for approval, I believe, is the first action item this evening. And that concludes my comments for this evening.
Thank you. Dr. Banlow?
Good evening, members of the board, and I'm going to keep my comments very brief, but I just want to remind all of us that we're not only New York strong, but we are Brewster strong. And I want to thank the board. I want to thank the teachers and staff and the entire administrative team, parents, community members, the SHEP committee for their dedication and commitment to the reentry process. This continues to be a fluid situation for all of us, and everyone has worked so hard. We continue to seek guidance from the Putnam County Department of Health, the State Education Department, and also our school physician, Dr. Casero. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone. That concludes my comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Can you still hear me okay? Just checking in. Not if I'm okay?
We can hear you.
Okay. It had a moment there, kind of froze. Okay, so for myself this evening, I'd like to, on behalf of the board, thank Dr. Banlow and everyone working in this district. I know everyone is working super hard. I'm so proud to live in Brewster and be part of the school community, but it's just so comforting to know that everyone here is pulling together to do the best we can, and I'm just so grateful to everyone. And so on behalf of the board, I want to say thank you for all the work everyone's putting in to make this be as successful as it possibly can, considering all the services that down from Albany, just all of it. So thank you. And I'd also like to, I know we had Jason and Daisy sworn in last night and board approved, but I'd like to, this is their first formal long board meeting. So just to publicly welcome them. Again, and along. So yeah, we're glad to have you. And so thank you. And again, I just want to thank everyone in the community who participated in this process and got us to the end result. So thank you. And then lastly, I will bring this up again at the end when we have board comments, so we can have just a brief comment moment about the NYSBA convention is coming up. So we'll just need to talk about that a little bit at the end of in our board remarks later. And that's it for me. And we will move on to our presentations, recognition, discussion. And first up is our PTA recognition. And am I handing that over to Dr. Banlow?
Yes, you sure are. Thank you, Ms.
Yes.
Masika. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so this evening we have the distinct honor of honoring our PTAs. And I just would like to start off by thanking the PTA presidents for meeting with me on a monthly basis and for their tremendous work with their PTA teams in each of our buildings and each of our departments. And you know, the work that they do is just second to none. And I appreciate all of the volunteer time that all of you, each and every one of you put in. So I know that you're listening, and big, big thank you. So we'd like to start off tonight. Our building principals are going to be honoring each of our PTAs. So we're going to start off tonight with Dr. Frank Zamberlin, who is our principal of JFK Elementary School.
Thank you, Dr. Banlow, and I'd like to thank you and the board for this opportunity to recognize our PTA at JFK. I think, Ms. Masika, when you said pulling together as a community, JFK, that meant a lot this year, because in the fall, we had to operate without Mr. Conroy for a few months. And, you know, we went solo for a bit, and he's a big part of a lot of what goes on at JFK. And I can't say enough about the PTA and how they stepped up during that time. And I'd like to thank Joanne Palmer's president, co-presidents Carrie Arciolo, Rebecca Carlaro, along with Julia Guedes, Renee Torciano, and Katie Conley. And if you recall back in the fall, it seems so far back, you know, we had a trunk or treat activity, you know, that night, which was really a wonderful night. And it happened during the night of a football game. So we had all of these things going on. And you talk about Brewster coming together, you know, K-12 and a community, couple of events going on at the same time. It was a wonderful event that we will get through all of this pandemic back to those kinds of events. And that's what the PTA helps to support and run. It was their idea to try it. I just said, let's go. And they took off with it and ran. So those are the kinds of things that our PTA has done on behalf of supporting our children in K-2 and along with K-12. So on behalf of the PTA, we are going to be making a $200 donation to CAP in the form of 8 $25 gift cards that will be going towards school supplies that CAP really needs to get to families. So we'll be delivering that this week in the name of our JFK PTA. And I want to thank them for everything they've done and continue to do moving forward as we go through this interesting year coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zamberlin, and thank you for the incredible job you and Mr. Conroy do each day as well. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Maggie Andriello, who's heading into her second year as the principal at CV Starr, and she's doing a fantastic job. Mrs. Andriello?
Is it okay if I join in? Because it's a shared PTA.
Oh, well, let me give a nice formal introduction. And also joining Mrs. Andriello is Mr. John Clark, our principal of Wells Middle School. Yes.
Great, thank you. So first of all, if I could just echo, because I talked to Maggie about this, and I think every organization should have a PTA. I think it would make the world a much better place. They just, they're like, it's like having your own crew of cheerleaders for you. Whenever we go to them or reach out to them, they can't do enough for us. So we're so appreciative. We'd just like to thank you for all that you do for us. Kelly, Anne-Marie, Tina, Ronnie, and Jennifer, we appreciate all the work you've done on behalf of us.
And just on a personal note, my first year being principal was quite eventful. It definitely ended on in a different than I anticipated, but Kelly and Tina, you were phenomenal supports this year, and I truly, truly am so grateful that my first year was working with both of you.
Thank you both, and thank you, Mrs. Andriello, and also your teammate, Mr. Allen. And
Yes, but we're actually not done. We actually have,
Okay,
have a little bit more.
sorry about that.
So this is just a snippet of things that we came up with. This probably took me about 30 seconds to come up with. And I probably could have about 7 more pages. Our Grandparents' Day, Incredible Teacher Appreciation Day. Every year, for those of you who do not work in a school, don't understand that the PTA comes to us for Teacher and Staff Appreciation Day and puts on a display of food and decorations. And every year they figure out a way, and I don't know how they do it every year because I've been there for 20 years now, but they improve upon it every single year by just pulling something, some unique nuance to our appreciation. So I think it's just a challenge and a game for them. Family game nights, spirit wear, constantly selling at all our organizations, our book fairs, refreshments. They gave masks to our 8th graders at the end of the year as a going away present this year. Picture day, author visit, book purchases, car washes, and just about anything else that we ask for. So our Mr. Palmieri, our tech teacher, custom made some signs for our president and our vice presidents, which we gave to Ms. Kowaleski today to hand over to Ms. Curtin as well. So this says, be better, not bitter. And this is one of our quarterly calls to action at the middle school. So he custom made these signs. Thank you to him. And it's just a reminder that as we go through these difficult, challenging times, we all need to be better and we all need to avoid being bitter because it's just so important to help us all get through. And it's just an important reminder that we are a strong community and we will continue to be.
And so on behalf of H.H. Wells and CV Starr, a donation has also been made to Putnam CAP in your honor. And again, just to reiterate what Mr. Clark has already said, thank you for always seeing the potential in every idea that we have, and some of them are pretty off the wall, but you never laugh at them. You always approach it with, okay, let's see what we can do. And you are just the biggest cheerleaders for the students and the staff of CV Starr and Wells, and our schools would be completely lost without you. You make everything better. And just at the bottom of this slide, PTA, what it means to us is that you move a possibility to action. And again, just thank you for everything you do.
Thank you both. I want to thank Mrs. Andriello and Mr. Allen for the great work they do at CV Starr, and also Mr. Clark and Mrs. Hernandez for their incredible work that they do as well.
Thank
So
you.
next up, we have our Brewster High School principal, Mrs. Nikki Horler, and her team are doing a great job. Mrs. Horler?
Mrs. Horler, I believe you're muted.
Okay, that's okay, because my dog is still sleeping, so we're good. So I would love to thank our PTSA. They've really done a remarkable job with us. It's slightly different at the high school. It's a little more difficult to get students and parents and people energized to raise money, but they've done a wonderful job. So thank you, Carla, Carrie, Kathleen, Daisy, and Paula. Chris, can you switch the slide? Schools would not be true communities without you. Strong communities that help to raise resilient, happy kids. Without your efforts to bring parents together, raise awareness of the needs of the school, spearhead fundraising efforts, and organize school-wide events, high school would not be a place that kids look back on and so fondly remember. Thank you for stepping up for Brewster High School. You are important. You work hard and you sign up for a job knowing that it would mean countless hours of your time. We sincerely hope that you and the others that volunteer at the high school feel fulfilled. Often you don't get enough credit you deserve, but please know that you do make a difference. I have to tell you, they were really remarkable when we were planning our graduation, and they helped us pay for our firework display. So I can't thank you enough. So the next slide is, we had Mr. Honey and our MC squared class. They make these flags. So we have these wooden flags. They're rather large, and they're in Mr. Rodriguez's office. So whenever any of you are by the building, please stop by and come and pick up your flags. And we too gave a donation in your name to Putnam CAP. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Mrs. Horler, for the great work you do, and also your team, Mrs. Cole and Mr. Rodriguez. And we're looking forward to getting back to the Bears Den. And last but not least, we have Dr. Kennedy, and she just wanted to say a few words about her PTA.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Banlow and the Board of Education for this opportunity. Our special education PTA is small but mighty. Mrs. Kristen Kakal is our president, and she is a Brewster alumna who has returned to her community and supported its growth in a multitude of ways. Just one of them being her work with our special ed PTA. Mrs. Kakal is a very strong advocate for all children. She's been instrumental with establishing our special ed PTA and helping us to provide meaningful opportunities for parent outreach and engagement. Kristen has helped many of our parents to feel supported all throughout the process. We're very grateful for all of her collaboration and support with our district's efforts to ensure equitable opportunities for all students. We're very much looking forward to continuing our work together this upcoming year. And in honor of Kristen and her efforts to support our children and their families, on behalf of PPS, a donation has been made in Kristen's honor to the Council for Exceptional Children, which is an agency that is dedicated to supporting the professional development and enhancing the expertise of those who work on behalf of children with special needs and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy, and thank you for the work you do, and also thank you to Mrs. Knotts and also Mr. Stolacci. So thank you.
Thank you.
Had to unmute myself. Can you hear me okay? I keep getting a pop-up that says my connection's unstable, so you can hear me all right?
Yes.
We can.
Okay. Let me know if not, just like wave your hands or something. So thank you for all those presentations and the great words for all our PTA volunteers. You know, from the board, I just want to say thank you as well, and you know, encourage everyone to do what you can, and just thank you so much to everyone who's been giving their time to the district, to the students. It really makes a difference. So thank you. Okay, so we move on to our next presentation, which is a re-entry update.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Masika.
And Dr. Banlow and Dr. Gosh, you're up next.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Masika. Joining me in this presentation is Dr. Gosh and also Mr. Carlson. So we had our information sessions. Members of the board, we wanted to share with you. I know we've been sharing information because it's continuous and it's fluid and everything's changing all the time. But we wanted to share with you some highlights of our reentry plan. So Dr. Gosh, if you can move to the next slide. So starting off with this journey, as you know, we solicited feedback for the reentry in many, many different ways. And one was the Putnam Northern Westchester Regional Thought Exchange, which was done throughout the entire region with several districts. And it was an excellent way for us to really gauge what was important to the Brewster community. And what came out really strongly throughout the thought exchange was the most important things for reentry to our families was the health and safety of students, PPE, social distancing, maintaining confidentially, God forbid we ever had a COVID outbreak with any of our students and staff, and also making sure that we continue our academic program and putting the students into cohorts. So we also had input, as you know, from other parent surveys, student surveys, staff surveys, and our subcommittees, which we'll talk about in a minute. So we'll go to the next slide. So how did we arrive at this journey? So we started off, as you know, in March of this year. And we started with our Safety, Health, and Emergency Planning Committee, which was here long before I got here, which oversees all of the emergency drills. And, you know, believe it or not, there is a pandemic drill that every district has. So we started our conversations there, and the state had a regional safety overall committee, which we had actually 2 of our administrators were on that state re-entry committee, and that was Mr. Trelaw and Dr. Kennedy. So I want to thank them. So throughout this journey and this process, we consult on a weekly basis with the Putnam County Department of Health. So every week I'm on a phone call with superintendents throughout Putnam County, finding out what the latest news is. We also received guidance, as everyone knows, from the New York State Education Department. And also we received guidance from the State Department of Health. And much of that guidance was very similar, members of the board, but there was occasions periodically where we knew that we had to really look at the Department of Health guidance first. That would trump the State Ed Department guidances, because what we were looking at is the safety and health and the really safe reentry of all of our students and all of our staff. So the other thing we took part in was regional collegial circles. Not only superintendents, all throughout the lower Hudson County, we still do, we meet twice a week. We also meet with the county, but also every single administrator in the district has their collegial circles. Dr. Harrington meets with the HR directors, Dr. Kennedy is meeting with PPS. So we are comparing notes constantly and making sure we are staying on top of everything. As you know, the governor came out with some focus areas that we needed to put into action, and that came, of course, from the State Reentry Committee. And each of those focus committees have been meeting on a daily basis. And some of those committees we'll get into a little bit, but one was transportation, one was human resources, we had digital learning, we had teaching and learning. So they were very, very specific. We had to make sure that all stakeholders, we had representation from parents, students, teachers, administrators. We had to make sure that we had everybody's input into the subcommittee work. So it was a lot of work. We originally were told we were going to be getting all the information by the end of June, but as board members, as you know, we did not get that until July. So we're just constantly waiting for more information to come as this unfolded, and we still continue to get new information, as you know. We've also consulted with Dr. Casaro, who is our school medical director, and he's also the medical director for several other districts throughout the region. So it was really great to be able to compare notes with other superintendents with what they were doing with Dr. Casaro, and he has been phenomenal. Frank Guglieri is the regional safety consultant from Putnam Northern Westchester. Frank also has periodically sat on our SHEP committee. I know also we have Mr. Gretzner. He also serves as a board member on our SHEP committee. And Frank was also a phenomenal resource. He continues to be a great resource. He's also met with our district nurses to guide them and to support them as we prepare for re-entering our students and staff safely. And I also need to give a big shout out to all of our collective bargaining units. We meet with them constantly. We've been keeping them apprised of all of the information that we've been putting into the portal for the governor and the state education department to approve. I think we bored them to tears at several meetings that we had gone through every single one of our assurances just to ask them, are we forgetting anything? Are we covering everything? So it was really critical to have all of these people involved as we move forward, and we continue to do this. We're not stopping. As everybody knows, we're still dealing with this. So we will continue in this process, and this is where we have arrived. So if we want to go to the next slide. So I'm going to ask Mr. Carlson to kick in here.
Sure. So this, we reviewed this, of course, at our other informational sessions. The main point that we really wanted to make is the frequency of our cleaning and how important it is that we are consistently addressing those high-touch surfaces such as handrails, door handles, crash bars, high-use areas such as bathrooms, cafeterias, etc. So really frequency is key because what we know is as soon as a clean surface is touched, it then becomes soiled. So we need to be constantly cleaning these areas. There's no magic potion. So in terms of cleaning products, most of the products that we had used in the past are effective against against coronavirus. However, in addition to that, we've been using hospital grade disinfectant products, which of course are safe for our students and our staff. But really, again, there's really no magic potion. There's no greater potency of these cleaning products that we're using. Again, the most important takeaway is frequency. So that's really where we're going to be focusing our efforts by adding additional cleaning staff throughout the school day at each of our buildings to make sure that we address those high touch areas. A few bullets on the right-hand side of the screen. Some of our advancements, obviously technology and knowledge, of course. Hand sanitizers you'll see being dispensed throughout the school buildings. Some of these actually were already introduced back in late February, early March, as this all began. Hand washing stations, you'll see in the facilities of JFK and CV Starr, especially new hand washing stations that we installed for our students to wash their hands before and after lunch. One thing that we learned throughout all of this is that hand washing is so important to prevent the spread of the virus. Naturally, we want to make sure that we encourage all of our students to wash their hands frequently throughout the day and especially before and after they eat. We have, of course, CDC guidance that we'll be putting on signs throughout the school building, of course, age-appropriate signs. And we've replaced all of our water fountains, or in the process of replacing our water fountains with bottle filling stations. And really, that's certainly not an exhaustive list of all of the safety procedures and policies that we've implemented. In addition, you'll see protective glass installed at greeter stations and other high traffic areas where social distancing is not ideal. Dr. Gosh.
Mr. Whalen actually is driving.
Oh, all right. That's a good cue in. So we move over to transportation. So this is actually, you'll see here a picture of one of our buses that we've configured. So with social distancing guidelines, it significantly reduces our capacity limits on our school buses. So on a 77 passenger bus, we may only be able to fit between 12 and say 15 students on a bus. And again, that significantly reduces our capacity. Because of that, we are going to move to a two-tier transportation system, meaning there will be 2 runs each morning to go into JFK and 2 runs to leave JFK each day. Because of that, again, because of the social distancing that we need to employ. The transportation department put together an excellent video of a day in the life of a Brewster Bear, what their experience on a school bus will look like. It just went out on Bear's Backpack, I believe, this afternoon. Students will be required to wear masks at all time. Of course, there will be cleaning on the bus before and after each run. Drivers, monitors, and students, of course, will receive ongoing training about social distancing, identifying the signs of and symptoms of coronavirus so that we can all stay safe during this time.
Okay, so there were some big picture decisions that we needed to make in order to move forward and to operationalize our plans for September. The first has to do with our 50% maximum capacity configuration. So just to give the board a synopsis of what we've been doing and what really the principals and assistant principals and our building custodians have doing, they've been looking at floor plans to gauge what the square footage is of each room. They've been physically going into classrooms to see what unique characteristics exist within those classrooms and how much usable space is actually there. Because we wanted, of course, we have to comply with our social distancing guidelines. So after multiple meetings, after going into classrooms, after much deliberation, we have decided that the safest and best way to do this is to operate at a maximum of 50% student capacity. It's the way we have to do it. We're going to do this right. And having that 50% capacity cap allows us to do a number of things, which we can get into as we talk a little bit more about our instructional design. So once we determined that we were only able to hold 50% of our student population at one time, we then needed to talk about the rotation of when students would attend in-person instruction. The Teaching and Learning Subcommittee talked about this on several occasions. Administrators discussed this not only amongst our own group, but in our regional circles to get a number of ideas out on the table and talk about pros and cons. So after much deliberation with this decision, we have decided that cohort A, which, by the way, cohort A is if you have a last name that begins with A through LE. Cohort B is if you have a last name that begins with LI to Z. So cohort A, if you have that last name that falls in that category, you are coming in for in-person instruction every Monday and Thursday. Cohort B is coming in every Tuesday and Friday, and Wednesdays will be rotating. Please know that even the Wednesday rotation was part of our deliberation amongst the Teaching and Learning Subcommittee and we went with a Wednesday instead of a Monday because we had found that if we went with a Monday as the rotation day, one cohort would be out of school for too long of a time. We were uncomfortable with it. So this model was chosen in order to give school students the in-person experience on a frequent basis to provide that structure and support for parents who chose this learning option for their son or daughter. We also heard from families that it was very important that amongst all this, this world is very unpredictable right now, that there be some degree of predictability. Linked into this presentation is a calendar that will show you the in-person days for cohort A and cohort B from now until our last day of school in June. So now that we have, 50% capacity, we know what days students are going to be attending in-person instruction. What are the learning options? Where does this leave us now? So parents have been asked to choose between two learning options. One is the hybrid model, the other is all remote. When we talk about hybrid, we mean 50% of the time students are attending in-person instruction, 50% of the time they are remote. And that was broken down by the AB cohorts on the previous slide. Hybrid instruction, even though you're attending in-person 50% of the time, it's instruction 100% of the time. The other option is the all remote option. The state education department asked us to give this option for students who were in a high-risk category, for family members of students who were in a high-risk category, or for parents who were uncomfortable sending their son or daughter into school. So of course, we're offering this option. Students will not report for in-person instruction at all. It will be completely digital, but again, it's still instruction 100% of the time. So at the K-5 level, and this is really pertinent to K-12, we did a lot of things really well in the spring, especially given the fact that we had to change on a dime. But there are some things that we know that we can improve on. And you'll see in these instructional design models at the K-5, 6, 8, and 9, 12 model, we've taken a developmentally responsive approach. We've also incorporated a number of key guiding principles that we have seen through feedback, the various feedback loops, and through what we know is best practice in a blended learning model. So at the K-5 level, if you chose, or if you choose, if you haven't done so yet, please do so, is the hybrid learning model. So in the hybrid learning model, again, 50% in person, 50% remote. When you're in person, you are in a classroom with your teacher at the K-5 level at half of the typical class size. So maybe it's 12 students or 11 students in the classroom at a given time. We know that we need to cohort students and that we need to limit transitions. So where we have done that naturally occurs. K2, the classroom teacher teaches the core academics. 3-5, there's a team of teachers that teach the core academics. So that cohorting is already in existence. And what we want to do, operating at the 50% capacity, is not only the right option for us or the right decision for us from a health and safety perspective, but it allows us to give the students an in-person experience that is as typical as possible. We're looking at different ways to maybe attend specials. We're looking at different ways. All students will have specials, but we're talking about whether it's push in or pull out. There are just different ways that we're trying to make the school experience, in-person experience, as typical for students as possible. One way that we're doing that is, and the K-5 level, students will actually eat lunch in the cafeteria. Many of the schools who are trying to bring in 100% of their students, the students aren't leaving the classroom all day. They're even eating lunch in the cafeteria. At the K-5 level, we are able to have our students eat in the cafeteria and actually socialize with one another in that way. When students are in the remote option within the hybrid model, they are having mostly asynchronous instruction, meaning that it is instruction that happens at a different time between teacher and student, meaning that the teacher may post a video and ask students to watch that video and to complete some activities. We did that, again, off of feedback from our teaching and learning subcommittee and from the various surveys, which said, if I'm working, I can't guarantee that my son or daughter is going to be able to log on at 11:30 for a math lesson. So please make sure that it's workable for working families. So in this model, if students are able to connect, they can do so during 2 time periods, a morning meeting time and an intervention enrichment time. Those are times where there will be an opportunity. It's almost like an extension activity, but it's not, there will be no new instruction during that time. So if students are not able to log on, they will not miss any new instruction. So that's a K-5 hybrid model. Moving into all remote. And we just, if you wouldn't mind going back, Mr. Whalen. Thank you so much. I know I've spent too much time on this slide. I can take the hint. In the all remote model K-5, we just spoke with Mrs. Andriello and Dr. Zamperlin again this afternoon. In all likelihood, there'll be a dedicated section per grade level, and there will be a balance of synchronous and asynchronous instruction given the developmental stage and age of the grade of students. So moving on to the middle school. Again, in the hybrid model, you're in school 50% of the time. When you're in school, you're attending core classes. Core meaning math, English, science, and social studies. You have a homeroom. You'll see this in the middle school and in the high school. This is another accountability device saying, you know, it's important that you show up on time. This is an adult that you can use as a resource, someone who can answer questions that you might have about safety protocols or about your schedule for that day. So we're really excited about the implementation of that structure this school year. At the middle school level, it's very difficult to cohort students. So what we've done is decrease the number of class periods, again, in an effort to adhere to guidance put out by the state education department. In the hybrid model, when students are remote, they will still have their homeroom. They still need to wake up at 8 o'clock. Let's say it's 8 o'clock, and attend homeroom. The attendance will be taken. And then students will attend encore classes, PE, art, health, tech, electives, music. That will be done remotely for the most part. The students will also have work built into their schedule, a schedule of the day for core classes, so that we have that continuity of instruction across a 5-day period. Moving on to the all remote for grades 6 through 8. And again, in all likelihood, we're going to have dedicated sections. And those sections will be a balance of synchronous time between teacher and student and asynchronous, meaning instruction that's not happening at the same time. Encore, of course, will be the same as the hybrid remote model at the middle school. Moving on to the high school, if you're in person, we are going to ask that you have a homeroom, that you report to that homeroom, the same model as the middle school. And then we are reducing the number of periods. We are doing that to limit transitions, the number of transitions that students have in a given day. So students will still be able to take 8 courses, but not all 8 courses will run on the same day. There is also, across all of the different models, office hours, which is a period of time when teachers are available via Zoom or Google Hangouts or Meets in order to be an extra help session for any student who wants to log on and to do that. 50% remote or the remote option in hybrid. Again, homeroom, you're still expected to wake up when your homeroom period starts. You're supposed to log in. When period 1 starts, if that's what's running that day, you log in. There's going to be a minimum number of synchronous minutes. There will also be asynchronous work. And if your course doesn't happen to be meeting on that day because of the rotation of the schedule, you will still be accountable for work. The all remote option, again, it's going to be a balance of synchronous and asynchronous, which is best practice when it comes to blended learning, but there will be live instruction. Students will be accountable. They will have a schedule. They will need to log on at certain times. And of course, the office hours are open to the all remote students as well. Okay, so for additional information, we have, with the help of Mr. Trelaw and Mrs. McAlpin in the tech department, have developed a reentry page. We are continuing to add to this. So here are a number of the documents that you can find on the reentry page just as of last Friday. The testing plan, the contact tracing plan, and the remote learning plan. That was a deadline. The governor had asked us to have that up, and it's all there. There's much more detail on this site, so we encourage you to go there if you have any questions, or of course to contact us.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Gosh. And just go ahead, if you can go into next steps, and then I'll kick in if you don't mind. Go
Sure.
ahead.
We will send out tomorrow morning building-based videos that will give a little bit more detail about what the experience will look like. We'll also have staff meetings this week run by our principals. And as we get the data back in terms of which option parents are choosing for their son or daughter, we'll be able to make the next level of decisions and move forward towards September.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gosh. Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Just a couple last things before we end the reentry presentation. Dr. Casaro had a really great suggestion that parents work with their children to practice wearing their masks while they're watching Dora the Explorer, so it's not so hard for them when they come back. Also, just remember there's lots of moving parts, so as Dr. Gosh mentioned, please continue to visit the reentry site. Videos that are being posted some of them are Brewster specific, and some of them are also provided to us from Putnam, Northern Westchester, BOCES that are safety videos for families, washing hands. There's going to be a little bit of everything. And I want to thank Mr. Trelaw and his team for putting together an incredible reentry website. I was blown away when I saw that. And I also just, again, want to thank the collective bargaining groups for working with us to protect our students and staff throughout this process. So thank you. And Ms. Masika, that concludes our presentation, and we want to see if the board has any questions.
Thank you so much. Just checking if you can all.
No, you're
freezing.
Okay.
You're breaking.
For some nods, anybody? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. We couldn't hear you before.
Kind of.
I can hear you now. Can I ask a question on the presentation?
Yeah, go ahead while I try to figure out my situation.
Okay, I just noticed in the calendar that I think it's in June that I think every Wednesday cohort A is in. I assume that's maybe because cohort A has less days throughout the other months. But I just wondered if there was, there must be an explanation for that. So that that's my question.
Sure. So according to our planning, that Wednesday was used to balance the total number of days that each cohort would attend in-person instruction for the month. So I see that according to my planning, that in June, cohort A is in person 10 days and cohort B is in person 9 days. Cohort A happens to be in more Wednesdays because of the way the rest of the month worked, if that makes sense. So overall, at the end of, sorry, go ahead. Do you have a follow-up?
No, I was just going to say, overall, it's even.
Overall, it's even, although each month, September is 8 and 8, October is 10 and 10, but then November it's 9 and 8. So then we have to balance it in December with 8 and 9, that sort of thing. But overall, it is the same number of in-person days.
And if I could just ask a quick question on the testing. I didn't get through that part of the presentation, but I know they pawned it off on the schools. I'm assuming it's going to be done through the county, if there's any testing and contact tracing.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Stephen. That's a really good question, and we did not mention that. Yes, that's definitely going to be done through the county and in partnership with Putnam County Department of Health and also with our school physician.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I had a question about snow days. How are those treated obviously it would be an in-person day for one of the cohorts at least?
So
Yes.
go ahead, Michelle.
I'm sorry. Good.
Go ahead, Dr. Gosh, you can answer.
So what we wanted to be able to do for planning purposes was to say, you know, even if it happens to snow and it's a snow day on December 10th, December 11th would still be the cohort that was planned to be on December 11th. So what we'll do as we move through and have snow days, we would, if we get to a point where we have to sort of add days back into the calendar, we'll do so in a way that adds those in-person days for the days that were missed, if that makes sense. So we'll make sure we continue to balance it as we go through, but it's fixed. The calendar doesn't get pushed. The only change would be if there are snow days that we go over our allotted snow days and we have to add days back.
Okay, thank you.
The talk about days just triggered something. Do you know if we're going to have the 180 or whatever the day requirement for this year is, or the education department hasn't really decided on that?
So Dr. Gosh, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So the number of days, as I'm 95% sure of this answer, the number of days remains the same, the minimum number of days, but there is a waiver in terms of the number of instructional hours. So that was 900 at the secondary level, 900 hours total per year, 990 at the elementary level, which we had met given our, with our previous schedule. That was waived last year, and I believe that is also, the hour requirement is also waived for this year.
Yes, that's correct, Dr. Gosh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm checking now. Is this any better?
That is better.
I just ran around the house.
I saw you.
There's no lighting, there's no desk. I'm winging it here. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
I have a question. The grading for the hybrid model and also for doing remotely, will that be the same?
The same between remote and
the hybrid model?
Great question. Yes, that will be the same. It will not be pass-fail. We needed to do that last year because we didn't have the teacher-student interaction and we were in the middle of a pandemic, but it's a new quarter. This is what the situation is for the foreseeable future. So grades will be the same criteria, all remote and hybrid. Thank you.
I have a quick question. If we have to switch to full remote learning, it'll look exactly for the whole district like that. So they'll still be having frequent office hours with teachers and synchronous instruction plus work at home.
So all three of those components will absolutely be there if we go full remote, the entire district. It probably will not look the same as the all remote model. We've been working with the BTA to say if we're 100% digital, then we have a little bit more flexibility. We have a little bit more flexibility in how we do things. So we've worked through some ideas with that, but there will definitely be a minimum amount of synchronous instruction. There will definitely be work that students need to complete, and an expectation that that work is completed. And you said a third thing that was a definite yes to. Whatever it was we're doing it.
Okay, everybody good? Okay, we can move on now. So next up would be any public remarks that we received through email that relate to our, oh, actually, no, I'm sorry, we're not on action items yet. We switched that around, but would be related to action items, which we didn't get any, unless I missed any. I don't believe we received any emails. No, okay. So next up is establishment of board committees and membership. So we started this at our annual reorganizational meeting in July. And we are going to finish it this evening. So first, let's see, we have required audit committee, myself, and we need another board trustee. So who is interested? I wanted to give an opportunity to our new trustees if they were interested, if one of you possibly were interested in audit. No one's jumping at the chance.
Sonia,
Anyone else?
Could I give just a quick recap of the audit committee, just so
Please.
maybe to reassure people that it's not as intimidating as it sounds? So we typically meet twice a year. Our fall meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 22nd, which I believe is the morning of a board meeting at 8 a.m. You know, of course, we're going to be in a Zoom environment just because it's more convenient for community members who may have to commute. So at 8 a.m. September 22nd is our fall audit committee meeting. We then typically, or at that meeting, we review our financial statements. So we just had our audit completed this summer. They're still preparing the financial statements. So at that September meeting is when the financial statements are reviewed in addition to our internal audit risk assessment. So we're, of course, subject to multiple layers of audit. We review 2 of those audit requirements at the September meeting. And then in May, we have a planning meeting for the next year's financial statement audit, in addition to a review of an internal audit, which is a focus area audit on a specific department or function of the district. And we utilize that obviously to improve our operations. So we rely on that to review what we're doing and see how we can do it better. So the total commitment is really just 2 meetings a year. Our meetings typically last an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. You know, of course, we try to keep it, reasonable because we understand that people have to get to work. That's the audit committee.
Sonia, I have a quick question. Are we looking at 2 board members for each committee?
Yes.
And then that equals the 4, right? It's 14 slots. That's what
it might, is it? Yeah, we each should at least have 2.
Okay.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, there's 7. So we each should have 2.
Okay.
I can do audit. As long as the meeting's early in the morning like that, it's not a problem.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what time in the morning again? Did you say 8
sorry?
o'clock in the morning? Victor, did you say 8 o'clock in the morning the meetings are?
Yeah, typically 8 o'clock, and we've had meetings as early as 7 o'clock, depending on schedules.
I can do it. I can do audit.
Okay. I'll let Jason do it. Or I'll defer to Jason, not let you do it.
Okay, thank you. So we move on to, and I'll just mention now for all of these, right, Victor, we're still looking for community members. I think we have community members for some of these committees, but not for all.
Yes, audit and finance, we did send a note out earlier in the summer, and we did receive community volunteers for both audit committee and finance committee.
Okay, do you need to send out a reminder for any of the other committees? Are we still short community members?
I will reach out to Glenn Fryer for SHEP and Kathy Hancock for wellness, but I believe so. I believe we do need community members for those committees.
Okay, so yeah, so if we do, we can just send out another, request.
Sure.
Okay, so next we have SHEP, which is the School Health and Emergency Preparedness Committee. We currently have Mr. Gretzner, and we need, well, we usually have 1 person, I think, on that committee, no? Or do we should always have 2 just in case someone can't make it. But, most of these committees should all have 2 people.
I can be on that committee.
And was that Daisy?
Yes.
Okay, we have a Wellness Committee. Currently is Francine. When does that meet?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Wellness Committee typically met during the school day because of the meal pattern. So we would typically have those meetings around 10 o'clock because it would be after the breakfast service, but before the lunch service. However, we did recognize that that was a challenge for folks to make it to those meetings. So, we can probably be more flexible with the timing of those meetings and perhaps make them earlier in the morning, maybe as early as 7 a.m. Again, just being responsive to the needs of our, also our teachers, in addition to community members.
Okay, who else is interested in that one? Look, who doesn't have 2 yet? Actually, what's going to be the BEF, because I'm looking, Eric, your name's down 3 times, but BEF, it's just one person. Their charter only allows for 1 person. So everyone may not end up having 2. But Eric, you've maxed out, unless you're dying to go.
I mean, no, it's the same load as last year. It wasn't too much. I'm fine with what I did last year.
Okay. So just to go over what's left, I mean, we're going to have to, I believe we still have to vote on this, right? That we accept it officially. I know we're doing it a little differently because normally it's at reorg. So finance is going to be left, policy is going to be left, and the school counseling advisory committee.
Can we get an idea of when all these meet? I think policies, isn't that usually in the sort of afternoon?
Policy is from 4 to 5 on, it's once a month. So it's every other board meeting. So an hour or 4 o'clock on a board meeting afternoon, once a month. Is that right, Michelle? I'm sorry, I should have let you answer that.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
I was on wellness. I got off because they tended to meet at 11, which is tough, but it is a little bit easier now because I will be home some days. So I can take wellness back. I think policy would be very hard for me to get to.
And Carrie, with that, obviously in this world that we're in right now, we'll of course have Zoom options available for.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll work. Yeah. So I can do that one. I mean, I can try policy, if that's still out there, I'm willing. It's just could be more difficult.
All right, so let's give you wellness for now and then see how the rest of it goes. So finance, we have finance, policy, and the school counseling. So finance is also in the morning, I believe, Victor?
Yes, 8 a.m.
8 a.m. And how many times a year?
2, we actually added a 3rd meeting this year. So we just had our meeting this morning, of course. Next meeting is scheduled in mid-November, and then the last meeting is early June.
Okay, any takers for that one?
I would like to do finance committee.
Francine? Okay.
Yeah, I know is it possible to just occasionally sit down on finance? That's sort of like a bugaboo with me, the finance, and I've been on it for last year. Would it be a problem to have a 3rd person on that, or is that?
We've never done it. I don't know. Do we put together, I think we put together, are they charters or some sort of outline for these committees, Victor, don't we?
Yeah, well, the finance committee is not a required committee, so it's less organized than, say, an audit committee. But in the past we'd have 2 board members, but there's no there's no limit. So really, it's whatever the board desires.
So but keeping it at no more than the 3 would be preferable, just because. Well,
4 would make a quorum, right?
So I don't see why not. Scott, what else are you on? I want to make sure though that we at least have two for, oh, you're on the school counseling, which, I mean, I can do that one with you.
Yeah.
What else are you on besides that? Because I'd like to, again, make sure we have two for everything first.
Counseling and, well, oh, no, there was another one. Where was it? Or maybe that could be a second one for me. I don't know.
Budget committee's not on?
No, but he does the legislative part. I don't know if we treated that as, I know it's not a committee, but.
But that is a lot
It's a
of work.
role that-
All right, so we'll let you off with the official second because that is a lot of work, Scott. Okay, so
Nice.
you can also join finance. It's really fun. I did that for years.
I like the money.
Scott. Okay, so we're left with policy. I'll do the school counseling with Scott. That can be my second. Policy at 4. Can anyone get there once a month at 4 o'clock? If not, then maybe what we could do is, I mean, I guess put my name down. You know, myself or Carrie, because you said, Carrie, sometimes you might be able to. And if Eric can't
I
be
think
there.
I misheard too. I thought that Eric said it was twice a month. It's once a month?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so I can do policy, but then I would like someone else to take wellness.
I mean, is it possible that we, have an emergency person? If somebody can't make it, we'll just put it out there and somebody will pick it up?
Well, I just figured that'd be me. Like, we need somebody.
Sure.
I mean, everyone should have two.
Throw some more on your plate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can
always be the emergency one for any of these. I would just say, so does 8 wellness, we might be able to do super early in the morning. Can anyone do that? I'm trying to see who doesn't have 2 yet. I know Daisy and Jason, you don't. Does anybody else not have 2?
Sonia, this is Daisy. I can take on the wellness.
If it's early in the morning?
If it's early in the morning, I can take that one on. That's fine.
So Victor, what's the likelihood of it being early?
I think that we can make it work.
Okay, so
is 7 a.m., 8 a.m., is there a preference? I mean, I'll speak to Kathy Hancock and I'm sure we can make it work. Is there a preference even earlier, 7 a.m. or is 8 a.m.?
5 a.m. So I'm good. I'm good.
What's the latest morning?
I'm not doing 5 a.m. Let's just get that one out there.
Yeah, Daisy, what's the latest morning time you can do?
It would be 8:30.
And Francine?
Yeah, that should work. There's not as many emergencies in the morning as there are in the afternoon, so.
Okay, and it's usually how long, Victor, an hour?
Wellness committee is typically under an hour.
Okay.
45 minutes.
30, okay.
Sonia?
Yes.
Is there any room to help Scott out on the legislation committee?
So it's, for right now, it's just one person. But whenever there's more, more board people can go. Whenever West Putt or NISBA sets up meetings with legislature, people from our legislature or whatever, more of us can always go. We just want to know we have one designated person that's going to kind of be in charge of informing us, being there and all that. So yourself or anyone else on the board is always welcome to join any of these meetings that are held and do that. So if you want to touch base with Scott at any time and join him for anything he's doing, you're welcome to do that as well.
Yeah, I could talk to Jason offline because I added to it a little bit. I go to Patterson, Brewster, and the village board meetings, and I talk to our county representatives as well as our senators. So I could just keep you in on the loop, and if there's times you want to jump in, just jump in. Just we'll keep it in that way.
Yep, I will.
Okay, so I think we're good with all of this. And Victor, can you help me at reorg? do we normally take a motion and vote for what we've established as the committees, right?
I
Yeah.
think the membership is what you do at this meeting. Or that's typically what we do at reorg.
We don't vote, we don't have to vote on it specifically?
Well, I think what the vote is to add the members. So like the vote is to say, you know, so-and-so is going to serve on audit committee, you know, this other person's going to serve on wellness committee, et cetera.
Well, I can just say, as discussed, we're a motion to,
Sure.
how about this? Because we,
It'll be reflected in the minutes that Lauren's writing.
okay, so we'll leave it as is. We've placed us all on committees, and we can always just add it to the next agenda for action items or something if we need to do more with this. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. We'll get clarity on that. I just want to make sure it's all official and correct. Okay, so then we can move on to action items. Yeah? Okay, and first up, we have approval of the 2020-21 tax warrant.
Okay, so I'm sorry to go back. Could I just get clarity on the wellness committee members?
It's Daisy and Francine.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm sorry. So the tax warrant, of course, is an annual resolution for the board requesting that the tax collectors in each of our 3 towns, Carmel, Patterson, and Southeast, collect the necessary taxes for the district to operate. Again, our finance committee met this morning to review the tax warrant in addition to assessed values and tax rates. So just quick background. The assessed values of all residential and non-residential properties have increased throughout the school district. And as a result, the tax rates actually decreased across the board. So naturally assessed values and tax rates have an inverse relationship. So the fact that the district only needed to increase taxes by 1.5%, tax rates actually decreased between 2% and 2.1% for our home properties, Patterson, Southeast, and Carmel.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item, please.
I make a motion.
Francine, thank you. And a second?
I second.
Thank you, Scott. Questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none. We'll do our roll call vote. Carrie Cunningham, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric Rutzner?
Yes.
Francine Santos?
Yes.
Scott Seaman?
Yes.
Daisy Jimenez Vasquez?
Yes.
Jason Whitehead?
Yes.
And myself, Sonia Masika, yes. Motion passes 7-0. Next item is the acceptance of annual report of reserve funds.
Sonia, I'm sorry, just to go back again, the tax warrant requires the signature of the board. So if board members could sign the tax warrant, we'll have it available at the district office this week because we're required to then send that off to the towns of Southeast, Patterson, Carmel, as well as the Putnam County Office of Real Property Tax Services. So we'll have that available at the district office as early as tomorrow morning. Going back to, agenda item number 2, acceptance of annual report of reserve funds. So we have a Board of Education policy 5512 that stipulates how the district utilizes its fund balance and establishes its reserves. Back in the budget process, we talked about utilizing fund balance to offset the tax levy for this year, which we've done, of course. I've embedded I've attached the link to our board presentation from the budget hearing back in May, showing our intended use of reserve funds for next year, and provided to the Board of Education is this report of reserve funds and intended uses, of course, as it was reviewed this morning by the Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item.
This is Daisy, I motion.
Thank you. And a second.
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jason. Questions or comments from the board?
I just wanted to also echo Victor's remarks about the calculation numbers. I mean, it was $3 million. You come within 90. That's pretty good math in my book. So thanks to the whole group.
Okay, anyone else? All right, hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And Sonia, myself, yes. With no objections, the motion passes 7-0. Action item number 3, approval of 2020-21 federal state free and reduced price meal program policy.
Yeah, so this is the USDA program, which outlines guidelines for non-discrimination practices, eligibility requirements, record retention, and hearing procedures for appeals for students and families who apply for free and reduced price lunch. Of course, again, free and reduced price lunch is a federal program. They set the income thresholds for eligibility. Most of the eligibles are identified through either federal or state agencies. So the school district actually has very little input on whether or not students and families are eligible for free and reduced lunch. Just wanted to also acknowledge again Kathy Hancock for all of her work each year as she gears up for the start of the school year. So with that, that concludes my explanation here.
Thank you very much. I need a motion for this item, please.
Carrie, I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And a second.
This is Eric. I'll second.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Sonia, myself, yes. With no objections, the motion passes 7-0. Action item number 4, approval of 2020-21 district-wide and building level emergency response plans.
Yes, so each year the Board of Education is requested to approve the emergency response plans. Of course, the district-wide plan is very generic in nature. It's embedded in the in board docs for your review. The school building level plans are confidential, of course, because they're much more detailed in nature than the district-wide plans. They're available for inspection if any of the board members would like to review them. And of course, they're reviewed by our School Health and Emergency Preparedness Committee each year. Naturally, there are going to be changes to the emergency response plans as we begin our reentry planning, and certain procedures that we typically have are going to look different. And as those changes come into play, they will be again reviewed by our SHEP committee.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item.
It's Francine. I make a motion.
Thank you. In a second.
This is Scott. I make the second.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
I did see on page 1, we still got Andrew Bates's name. I know later on it has Glenn as the person, but for some reason they point out that Andrew Bates is the person. So that's on the very first page, page 1. And it just had there's a list of schools. And I don't know, the last time I talked to, if St. Lawrence used to have a preschool, maybe it's just fallen off the path. That one is not included in the list of preschools. And I just had a question for maybe a future discussion, especially like what we just had with the power outages and all the issues. And we had it in the past where we opened up the school when we had that like 2-week around Halloween for showers and charging stations, cooling stations. I'd like to see if there's a way possibly, if it's appropriate and possible, discuss some type of mutual aid with maybe Patterson, Brewster, and Southeast. See if there is something we could do either way. or if that's not something that's part of the plan, it's just an idea. If that's something we could look at in the future.
Sure. Okay. So,
Yeah.
so obviously, Andy Bates was one of the names that should have been changed out, and of course, Glenn Fryer is our Director of Facilities and also our Chief Emergency Officer. In response to your question about disaster recovery, we actually have intermunicipal agreements in place, both with the town of Southeast and also Putnam County Bureau of Emergency Services, in which we actually did reach out to the Bureau of Emergency Services. They're of course the coordinators of disaster recovery in the region. So we did reach out to them when we did have the power outage. The intermunicipal agreements were last approved. They don't expire, but they were last approved about a year ago. But it may be a good opportunity to just renew them and just reinforce them and remind maybe some of the other municipalities that they are in effect and available to them.
Thank you for that. Like I said, if you want any, when I go to the various meetings, if the board and the district wants to, I could always lead a conversation or start something. Once again, at your discretion. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Just want to say thank you, Scott.
Okay, so we now go on to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And myself, Sonia, yes, with no objections. The motion passes 7-0. We move on to action item number 5, approval of terms and conditions for the Director of Facilities 2.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Masika. So this resolution notes the provisions of Mr. Freyer's contract of employment that expired on June 30th. Full disclosure, the intent was certainly to present this to the board with the other contracts that were approved at the July meeting. So this does reflect just a mere oversight. It largely had to do with the timing of Mr. Freyer's start date that I missed it. So the provisions noted in the contract are certainly consistent with the management confidential employees and consistent with his prior contract.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item.
This is Daisy. I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And a second.
And I'll second that.
Thank you, Jason. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Abstain.
Okay, and myself, Sonia, yes. So the motion passes with 6 yeses, 0 objections, but 1 abstention. So it passes 6 with 1 abstention, okay? Thank you. We are now on to action item number 6. Approval of contract for stack processing services.
Yes, so STACK is an acronym, system to track and account for children, excuse me. It's a consultant services agreement that allows the district to apply for excess cost aid, which is a large component of our total state aid. It represents about $3 million. And we utilize, obviously, an expert to perform that service on behalf of the district due to the magnitude of the state aid that's available to us.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item, please.
Carrie, I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And a second?
This is Eric. I'll make the second.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
Victor, this isn't a new program. This is something that we've been using for a number of years at this point.
Yes, quite a few years. We had we went out to RFP, request for proposal, last year. This would be our second year. So really it's an extension of an existing agreement with our STACK consultant. So it's year,
And the
year 2 of 5.
Year 2 of what?
5.
And the cost, I would assume, is standard because it went through the RFP. But is any of this aidable?
None of this is aidable, but what the consultant generates, it's all of our excess cost aid.
Thank you.
And so, Victor, do we approve this once and then we're done and we won't approve it next year, or we can expect to approve it every year?
We've been approving, it's just been our practice to approve it each year.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Hearing none, we go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes 7 with 0 objections. Thank you. Action item number 7, disposal of district property technology equipment.
Excuse me. So this technology equipment is recommended for disposal by our technology department. As you can see from the attached list, many of these items are obsolete, no longer being used. They include VCRs and some of the old school TVs that used to be wheeled into classrooms on carts. So we're disposing of them for the 2021 school year. In addition, we do have, of course, a technology replacement program where some of our older Chromebooks will be replaced for newer Chromebooks as well.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item.
It's Francine. I make a motion.
Thank you. And a second.
Scott, I'll make the second.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we can go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes 7 with 0 objections. We're on to action item number 8, award of purchase contracts for instructional, athletic, and custodial supplies pursuant to competitive bids.
Yeah, so the district utilizes Ed Data Services for cooperative bidding, which of course results in cost avoidance for instructional, athletic, and custodial supplies. As you can see from the attachment, the district was able to save $204,000 more than it would have if we had just simply went with state contract pricing. So back in March, we often asked the board to approve our participation in cooperative bids, and the award of these contracts represents the success of those competitive cooperative bid programs.
Thank you. I need a motion for this item.
This is Daisy. I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And a second.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Jason. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we can go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote? Is it me or did I not hear you? Carrie?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Okay. Eric, how do you vote?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes 7 with 0 objections. We move on to action item number 9, approval of agreements, A, school resource officers, and B, school patrol officer.
Yes, so these are our annual agreements with Putnam County for providing school resource officers to the district. Just as a reminder, we have an SRO in each school building in addition to an SPO at Brewster High School. The cost sharing arrangement with the county is 50-50 for the high school SRO, 50-50 for the middle school SRO, For the CV Starr SRO, which is our newest addition, it's 100% school district funded. And for the JFK SRO, it's an 83.3% school district funded position. The reason for the discrepancies in the funding levels has to do with the history really of the SRO program, not just in Brewster schools, but throughout Putnam County. So originally SROs were placed in the high school and then I think subsequently in the middle school. After that and after the unfortunate incident in Sandy Hook, an SRO was added to JFK. At that point in time, the county was willing to take on 2/12 of the contract value and 10/12 really the school year the school district would take on. Fast forward and we added our 4th SRO 2 years ago, at which point the county offered or really required the district to pay 100% of the SRO's position due to the fact that if not for the school district's request, the county would not have otherwise employed that officer. So just to give a quick recap of the cost breakdowns, because it's often asked throughout the school year. And with our SPO, Special Patrol Officer, the terms of that agreement is that an SPO is a Special Patrol Officer, so that position is different than an SRO. It's typically a retired police officer. And the rate for the retired police officer is $25 an hour plus FICA. However, due to the fact that the person is retired, there's no additional cost for any other fringe benefits such as pension costs or health insurance. Just wanted to mention, because it was discussed and it was a hot button during the extended closure last year, conversations that we had with the county about the being relieved of this financial responsibility for the SROs if in fact we're in another extended closure. The county was unwilling to absorb any of that cost. We were reminded by the county that Brewster residents are also county residents, and therefore there isn't any additional cost in terms of taxes. It's really just a cost shift. So I just wanted to, remind everyone of that conversation from this past spring and hope that we don't have another extended closure.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item, please.
It's Carrie. I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And a second.
This is Eric. I'll second.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none. We go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Myself, Sonia, yes. The motion passes with 7 and 0 objections. Okay, we move on to action item number 10, acceptance of donation from Brewster Elks Lodge and approval of budget amendment number 1.
Sorry, we'd like to thank the Elks Lodge for their generous donation, $750, and Mr. Turnyansky for his support of our district. CV Starr is being allocated $500 and Wells Middle School is being allocated $250.
Thank you. I need a motion for this item, please.
Francine, I make a motion.
Thank you. And a second.
This is Scott. I make the second.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
I would just like to thank the Brewster Elks for this continued support of the district.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, we can go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And myself, Sonia, yes. And the motion passes with 7 and 0 objections. We move on to action item number 11, approval of 2019-20 health services contracts.
Yeah, so these are health services contracts for our students, our Brewster resident students who are attending private schools in other school district boundary lines. As a matter of law, we're required to reimburse those public schools for providing health services to our Brewster resident students.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item.
This is Daisy. I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And a second?
It's Jason, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, we can go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine? You were muted, I think, Francine, if you...
Yes.
Yes, okay. As Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Myself, Sonia, yes, and the motion passes 7 with 0 objections. We are on to action item number 12. Approval of policies, first and only read. Policy 3280, public use of school facilities. Policy 5800, computer use and instruction. Policy 7110, attendance. Policy 7330, searches and interrogations of students. Policy Regulation 7510-R, student health services. First read Policy 6150, staff substance abuse. Policy 6550, leave of absence. Second read Policy 5676, privacy and security for student data and teacher and principal data.
Policy committee has been busy. So typically we have 2 categories of policies that we submit for your approval. We still have 2. The second read, Policy 5676, and the first read, Policy 6150 and 6550. However, tonight there is a third category, which is the first and only read. So that sets of policies listed under first and only read pertain only to re-entry. So there are 4 or 5 of those policies or regulations there for your approval. Please know that we are legally required to only have 1 read. It's been our practice in the past to have 2. However, given our accelerated timeline and the fact that we would like these policies to be in place for our first day of school, we are asking for a first and only read for the policies only pertaining to re-entry. These policies have been reviewed by our legal counsel, thoroughly vetted by our policy committee, and we submit them for your approval. And I would just also like to thank the policy committee. They had a July and August policy committee, which we've never had in the past, in order to get this done. So I thank them for their service.
Thank you. I need a motion for this item, please.
This is Jason, I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second. It's Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie. Questions or comments on any of the policies?
Question. I guess leave of absence we're changing because while they passed the law, changing the voting laws, then they passed the next year, they changed it back to the original. So basically we're just going back to the original piece on that?
I believe the leave of absence were also, and Dr. Harrington, if I leave any of this out or am inaccurate, please let me know. But the leave of absence was also pertaining to short-term absences like screenings for different types of cancer. It made it more generic as opposed to labeling 2 different types within it. And yes, whatever is legally required by the changes in any sort of leave pertaining to voting is reflected in these policies.
And on the public use of school facilities, have we always had this language about, I guess, a religious exemption and a political exemption? I guess that's just standard in school systems?
That did not change. So yes, the only thing that changed when it came to public use of school facilities is language around if the board allows organizations to use our facilities, they need to adhere to the same guidelines set forth by the Department of Public Health and the State Education Department.
Okay, so if they were to change the numbers of people that can gather, we don't have to change our policy, it just be reflective, and we don't have to keep going back and forth. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I have a comment. I read with interest the policy on searches and interrogations of students. And as a former prosecutor, I thought it was pretty accurate. I would just say I know we're talking about children here, but I lived and breathed this stuff for 8 years. And I would just say some of the definitions should probably track the penal law a little bit better. But all in all, I thought it was pretty accurate.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Whitehead. We can ask our attorneys to review that, and we could send it back for an update and revision.
Yeah, just one other thing. There was also there was a provision in there for one of the definitions for knowingly, and I think it was an intent provision for knowingly and I think willingly. There's one that I think we left out that could have been added, and that was reckless behavior. That's also something in a mens rea intent element that the school's attorneys could also look at. But I can point it out another time.
Okay, thank you for that. If I could make the recommendation that the update to that policy pertain to us being able to take students' temperatures when they entered the school grounds. So if it's okay, if we could approve it because that's part of the first and only read, and then we can go back and define those definitions, or refine, I should say, those definitions in that language that Mr. Whitehead's speaking to.
Sure.
Okay, so just to ask, does anyone feel we need to, I mean, again, we'd like to have them in place before school opens. Does anyone feel we need to table that particular policy, or can we go forward as is and, amend just some of the language later and maybe, in revising it, approve it again differently? Is anything detrimental in it that would be so bad to not approve? Does anyone feel that we need to table it?
I think it's very, very pretty accurate. I don't see any reason to table it. Amending it later on, I think would be fine.
Okay. Okay.
If that's even necessary.
Okay. So any other questions or comments on any of the policies? Okay, hearing none, we will go forward then with the vote with the policies as outlined in this action item. And Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And myself, Sonia, yes. The motion passes with 7 and 0 objections. Okay, action item number 13, approval of memorandums of agreement with private schools, Longview School, Green Chimneys.
Yes, thank you. There are 2 sets of MOAs for this action item, both with Longview and Green Chimneys. So each year for title grants, titles 1, 2, and 4, we engage in memorandums of agreement with the private schools in our catchment area. As a reminder, we are the lead educational agency. We are the custodians of the federal and state funding for those private schools in our area. This year, in addition to the typical grants, there's also CARES Act funds, which does not in any way represent new money to us. This was money already pledged in the form of aid. Longview and Green Chimneys also receive an allocation of those funds. So these MOAs outline the responsibilities for us and for the private schools to ensure that the funds are being used in an allowable manner as designated by the United States Department of Education. These are annual requirements, and we submit them for your approval. Mr. Carlson, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything about the CARES Act and.
No, you nailed it.
Fires you up.
You nailed it, and you stole all my thunder.
Well, thank you both. Okay, I need a motion for this item.
I'll make the motion, Sonia. It's Carrie.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Derek.
Oh, we're all over.
Go ahead, Daisy.
This is Daisy. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Daisy. Okay, so questions or comments on this item? Hearing none?
The only thing is, I know Longview School just moved. They're over across the street from, I guess, Colbackers now. They're a new building. I'm assuming that's all reflected in the MOA or whatever.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes with 7 and 0 objections. We move on to action item number 14, approval of stipulation of settlement.
So this is approval of stipulation of settlement for case number 536837 as discussed in executive session.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item, please.
Francine, I make a motion.
Thank you. And a second.
Scott, I make the second.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we can go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes 7 with 0 objections. Okay, we are on to action item number 15, approval of agreements with tutoring agencies, the Learning Shop Strategic Learning.
Each year, there is a need to enter into agreements with outside agencies to provide instruction to students who are out of school for a prolonged amount of time due to illness or disciplinary matter. So we sent out RFPs or requests for proposals to several agencies. The rate, we received 2 back. The rates are outlined in each contract. Please note 2 things. One is that the members of the BTA sort of have right of first refusal to tutoring. So especially if it's a teacher that already knows the student, we try and help make that connection. And please also know that we're asking for approval for both of these because it's important for our counselors when they're working to set up tutoring that they have options.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item, please.
This is Daisy. I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And a second.
It's Jason. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we will go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Thank you. Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes 7 with 7 and 0 objections. Okay. Action item number 16, approval of resolution to approve an employment contract with Dr. Lori Banlow to serve as superintendent of schools July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2025. I guess I can speak to that. The board met in executive session and we had a discussion about her contract and came to the amendments, agreed to the amendments that were here. So we're now just going to vote on that. So I need a motion, please, for this item.
I'll make that motion. This is Jason.
Thank you. And a second.
I'll second. Eric.
Eric.
Sure.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Anyone else would like to say anything?
Yeah, I would just like to say, 1 year in, considering what we've been through, Dr. Banlow has really turned things around. And it's stability for everybody to have, knowing that she's going to be here for these 5 years. So it's better all around. To have 4 superintendents in 6 years is a little crazy. And it's got to be difficult on the community and the administration. So I'm all in favor of this.
Thank you. Anyone else like to say anything?
I'll just say, if I can, that of course everybody knows I'm new to the board. Just sworn in last night, and I wasn't privy to the Dr. Banlow's negotiations of Dr. Banlow's contract. From what I've seen over the last year, it's been all good things. It's been a lot of good. I think just the tenor, the feel of the district has changed somewhat, a lot. She came in, and I believe she handled the COVID crisis extremely well. So while I wasn't privy to her contract negotiations, I asked a lot of questions in executive session, and I believe that any concerns that I had ameliorated, lessened. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We will go to the vote. And Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric, how do you vote?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason? Oh, you're muted. One more time, Jason. How do you vote?
A great respectful yes.
Okay, thank you. And myself, Sonia, yes. The motion passes with 7 and 0 objections. And I just want to also finish by saying thank you, Dr. Banlow, for everything you're doing for this district and getting us through these trying times and bringing us all together and just thank you. So
Ms.
we now move
Masika,
on
can I,
Yeah.
may I say something? I just want to thank the board and the community. It is an honor and a privilege to serve this district. And I have to say, I have a tremendous team in this district, right from the administration to the teachers. So it's a total unified effort. So I just want to thank you very, very much.
Okay. So we now move on to action item number 17, approval of terms and conditions for the Assistant Supervisor of Transportation trainee.
Yes, thank you. So this resolution establishes the terms and conditions for this vacancy. Again, these terms are consistent with all newly hired personnel outside of the bargaining unit and under a separate contract.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item.
Francine, I make a motion.
Thank you. And a second?
This is Scott. I'll make the second.
Okay, questions or comments from the board?
My only question, is there a civil service test that's going to be required to be passed before I guess it's official?
Yes, that's correct. So that's why you'll note a provisional appointment for Ms. Mutner later in the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? No, okay, hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes 7 with 0 objections. Okay, we are on to action item number 18, approval of MOA with BTA for math specialist for instructional support, approval of MOA with BTA for driver's education program, approval of side letter of agreement for dean of students, approval of a side letter of agreement regarding welfare fund.
Yes, okay. So 3 of these positions with the BTA are positions that are approved each year. Our annual, subject to board approval annually. So our lecturer for driver's ed, our math specialist, along with our dean of students. And then the MOA on the welfare fund, by all means, Mr. Carlson, if you want to jump in, but this allows for some further streamlining regarding the district's contribution, responsibility towards contribution to the fund based on staff demographic data as of Beds Day.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Carlson, if you want to elaborate any further on the last MOA with the welfare fund.
No, again, you also stole my thunder. I just also want to point out to the board the importance of this MOA because it clarifies an issue that we've had in the past over unclear language within the BTA contract. So we're happy that we were able to come to this resolution to, again, streamline and clarify a lot of ambiguous language in the existing BTA contract.
Okay, thank you both. I need a motion for this item.
This is Daisy. I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And a second.
Jason, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we can go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes 7 with 0 objections. Okay, last action item, number 19. Approval of a side letter of agreement with the BTA regarding remote and hybrid instruction.
Yes, thank you. I'll take that one. We would like to thank the Brewster Teachers Association for their partnership and collaboration in coming to an agreement regarding instructional models and parameters needed for the various learning modalities this school year. So this MOA outlines any contractual changes that are necessary to implement our various models. And we look forward to continuing to work with the BTA as we enter the worlds of hybrid and all remote learning instruction.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for this item.
Motion, this is Jason.
Thank you. And a second.
I'll second. It's Carrie.
Thank you. Questions or comments on this item?
I would also like to thank the BTA for this and how we can roll out everything as we knew for the best for the kids.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes 7-0 with no objections. Okay, I would actually, I was able to clarify in the meantime. I want to go back to D, the establishment of board committees and membership. We do need to just vote on it. When we did it last time, we voted on as it was. So we need to revisit it and vote on it now. So if I could just get a motion for the establishment of board committees for number 1, required committees. As we discussed previously, and I'll just go through it real quick. Audit committee will be myself and Jason, plus community members to be determined. School health and emergency preparedness SHEP committee will be Mr. Grutzner and Daisy, plus community members to be determined. And wellness committee board members are Francine and Daisy. So if I wrote that all down correctly, I need a motion for that required committee list.
This is Francine. I make a motion.
Thank you. In a second.
And this is Scott. I make the second.
Thank you. Any questions or any other comments on this? Good to go. Okay, so real quick vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes 7-0. And then number 2, recommended committees, finance committee. We have Francine and Carrie Cunningham with Scott as well. And then community to be determined. Policy committee is Eric and policy committee. Oh, Eric and was it Carrie?
Carrie.
And then Education Foundation is Eric, School Counseling is Sonia and Scott. So if I may have a motion on this recommended committees, please.
This is Daisy. I'll make the motion.
Thank you. In a second.
It's Jason, I'll second.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Good to go. Okay, to the vote. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Francine,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Daisy,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
and myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes 7 with 0 objections. Okay, we're good to go. Thank you for doing that. We can put it behind us now for the year. Now consent agenda. Anything, Brent, that you wanted to add?
Yes, sure. So maybe if I could just take a moment, given that we have some new board members, and just provide sort of a bit of an explanation in terms of the structure of the consent agenda. I do just want to point out that the board and the public will note that the consent agenda for personnel appointments is always structured to reflect our recommendations for instructional personnel or our unclassified staff, which are certificated staff, and our civil service appointments or our classified staff. So in essence, the consent agenda for personnel is divided into 2 sections. Each personnel appointment notes the position, assignment, and effective date, along with a recommended candidate's probationary period. This is dictated, of course, on the instructional end by the state education department, where instructional staff typically are appointed to a 4-year probationary period unless otherwise having received tenure in a prior district, in which case the appointment would be reduced by a single year. Classified appointees, or again, our civil service employees, who are subject to the terms of probation under civil service law, which is typically 1 year. Additionally, the board will note that all recommended personnel for probationary or leave positions within a bargaining unit are subject to the salary step in that collective bargaining unit. That collective bargaining agreement. It's important to note that HR notes the prior individual who held the position, which you can see on the consent agenda, and that's largely for the purposes of transparency and maintaining accurate records of personnel movement. Consent agendas also note resignations and leaves of absence for school personnel. The purpose is to ensure accuracy with payroll and the accurate tracking for the purposes of calculating an individual's seniority. Finally, any work beyond a staff member's contractual obligations is subject to additional compensation per the terms of their respective contract, and such positions and salary are subject, such positions and salaries are subject to the provisions of that contract. So tonight's recommendation for our staff, assuming the role of a mentor for our new staff, is one such example in this evening's agenda. Appointees to cafeteria duty, for example, provide another. So with that information and sort of education in mind, the district presents this evening's personnel recommendations for the approval to the board for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And Liz Kennedy, did you want to add anything in terms of explaining some of the other parts of the consent agenda?
Sure. So on the consent agenda, we also have the PPS board report. And typically what this includes, as you can see with today's board report, is a summary of the placements and the recommendations made by the Committee on Special Education, as well as the Committee on Preschool Special Education. We are legally required as a district to notify the Board of Education of these recommendations. Student names are not mentioned. This is highly confidential information. However, the program recommendations pertaining to each student who the CSE met on during the time period listed are mentioned. And so what you'll see here are references to some of the components of an individual education plan with reference to programs such as integrated co-teaching, special class, some of the preschool supports such as special education itinerant teacher, things like that. So those are all references to the actual program or service that was recommended. And again, also it refers to related services as well. And so this is part of our sharing the summary of our work and recommendations with the Board of Education.
Okay, thank you. I think that covers it. I'm looking it over. Okay, so I need a motion and a second for the consent agenda.
Carrie, I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And a second.
I'll second. This is Eric.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, any other questions or comments from the board?
I just have one informational question. I've just been curious on this. Substitute certified and non-certified. I mean, that's exactly just what it says. There's no trick to that.
No trick to that. So an individual who does not hold certification can substitute up to, I believe it's 30 days, whereas someone who does hold certification can fill in as a substitute for the entirety of the school year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the vote on the consent agenda. Carrie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes 7 with 0 objections. Okay, we are on to public remarks. Again, for any emails that came in. And again, I don't believe any emails came in on any general topics. Did I miss any, Carrie or anyone else?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay. So we now move on to board remarks, committee updates. And if it's okay, I'll start with NYSBA. So every year, New York State School Boards Association has a conference. They pick different cities around the state. It was supposed to be in New York City this year. It's now scheduled to be in New York City next year. But for this year, they're planning a virtual conference over the course of 2 weeks. So October 20th, 21st, 22nd, October 27th, 28th, 29th. And then the business meeting will be on October 31st. But the conference meeting, which is what we could all have access to, would be on those 6 dates. So you don't have to decide this right now, but I might send out an email. Normally when it's like, in Buffalo or whatever, we would kind of choose a handful of people we select amongst ourselves just to kind of keep costs down because it can get expensive. Being that this is a virtual conference, no one has to travel anywhere. So it is an opportunity for us to educate ourselves. So in addition to all the state mandated trainings that we've had and some of you on the board will be having, this is just more stuff. So what happens is districts around the state put on different presentations, and it's an opportunity for us to learn from what other districts do, have different types of trainings and informational sessions, and hear speakers on different topics. It's always super helpful. We bring lots of stuff back to the district that helps us in our work, informs us, and helps us understand we're not alone in the work we do, and find out what goes on in other districts. Being that it's virtual, though, it's going to be obviously it's less social. They're claiming they're going to have opportunities for us to interact with other districts. I don't know how they're going to do that, but there is a discount up until September 8th. So if anyone was interested in participating in this conference, if we could kind of get a final number before September 8th. So I'll send an email out about that, but I just did want to talk publicly first. So the community also knows that, that's that time of year again. Okay, so that's it for me on the NYSBA convention, unless anyone has questions or any other thoughts they want to share on that.
Sonia?
Yeah.
Victor just wants to go back to the consent agenda. I don't want him to feel left out. There was a financial piece. He just wants to make sure he shares that with the new board members as well, if that's okay with you.
Sure. Let me just finish this NISBA piece real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone want to comment on any of that, or we're good with an email coming around? Looks like email.
With an email.
Okay.
Email's fine.
Okay, Victor. I actually was scanning the screen for faces, and I must have missed your face, so I was like, oh, maybe he's gone. So go ahead.
As my thunder continues to be stolen this night. You know what? It may be easiest if I'm able to share my screen. I don't know if I have that capability. I'll attempt to. Just because there are financial documents, and it's really hard to speak to them without sharing them out. So try to share my screen. Let me know if it's being shared.
Yep, I think so. Yeah.
So we'll start with an appropriation status report. So this is basically the expense side of our budget. So each month, an appropriation status report is prepared and sent to the board. It's summarized by functional category. So these functional categories are set forth by New York State. They're uniform across all of the 700 school districts throughout the state. It basically shows our beginning budget, any adjustments through budget transfers or budget amendments, one of which you approved this evening, an amendment to the budget, which is increasing our budget in recognition of a $750 donation we received. Then we have our adjusted budget, anything we've expended, encumbered, those are funds that we've set aside for purchases that we intend to make. So these represent orders that we've placed. And then available, of course, is available funds that are not encumbered and available for spending within the departments. So that's basically a summary of the appropriation status report. I will move on to the next type of report that we are providing to the board, revenue status report. So this is the revenue side of our budget. Again, all of our original budget, any adjustments to our revenue budget, which then results in our revised revenue earned. This shows all the revenue that's earned throughout the year, and it's a cumulative report, so it's showing from July 1st through June 30th of last year. And unearned revenue is basically the difference between our budget and what we actually receive. Moving forward to the treasurer's report, essentially this is a bank reconciliation to show that our bank reconciliations are being performed each month. Each of our different bank accounts, we have quite a few bank accounts that are approved by the board at the reorg meeting, and the treasurer's report shows essentially, again, a bank reconciliation each month. Moving on, the claims audit report. So I mentioned earlier, we're subject to multiple layers of audit. One audit type is the claims audit. And forgive me because it is sideways, wrong way. So our claims audit is essentially a review of every single check disbursement that goes out of our building, whether it be for 1 penny or $100,000. It's subject to a claims audit. So our claims auditor reviews every single check for completeness to make sure that there is an appropriate invoice, that it was signed off on by the appropriate department head. Any checks that are required to be voided and reissued are, of course, recommended for that reason, and they're all listed here for the board's review. Finally, the last two types of items, I'll just show one. Each month, the extra classroom activity fund, which is our student clubs, report is prepared showing basically the account activity within each of our different clubs. I'll turn this for a second. So each of our clubs, so this is the high school report for the month of June, showing all of our high school clubs that have financial transactions. Many of our clubs don't collect any cash, so they although they're in existence, they may not be listed here. Again, just to show the activity within the club, as well as a bank reconciliation that's performed by the central treasurer of the high school, which is one of our teachers, and of course reviewed by our building principal. So those are typically the reports that you'll see in the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you, Victor. No one can speak to that as good as you.
Well, I try to be quick because I know most of the things that I talk about are boring and also complicated, but just to give a little clarity on what we provide each month to the board.
Thank you. Okay, so we will go back to the board remarks. Anyone else on the board have anything they'd like to share
just give some quick legislative updates, but first I would like to once again welcome Daisy and Jason to the board. You're here now, so you can't get out, so just remember that. This was your choice. Patterson they're still recording their meetings, so you don't even have attendance. They record them and show them later. The village has a Zoom meeting and you zoom in on it, and sometimes they let people come in, but once again, they're just plunging ahead. Southeast has, like we're looking to do, they've returned to the town hall. So they actually social distance, have people in their masks, the whole works, and keep it in that aspect. We have had a couple of meetings with, they actually arranged one of our New York State senators, federal senators, Senator Maloney. They had a very small representation, but they did make a presentation, and they're looking to really actively promote that all the state organizations and all the stakeholders reach out to the federal representatives to push for the need for federal funding for the schools. As you know, we need it. There's projections that there might be a 20% drop in some of our foundation aid. So maybe it's something we can bring up at a future meeting. They do have some things on their website, suggestions of letters to either post for the public or for the board members to use and send out. And I guess that's it.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so next upcoming meetings, I believe our next meeting is September 8th. And our intention is to have it in person, socially distant, and we will confirm with the community exactly where it will be for sure. And when we send out our notice, so that if people do want to come, they'll be able to do so, and we'll have all the rules in place, masks required, and people will be spaced out in their seating. We will continue to allow for a Zoom access. And just to also comment, for anyone's welcome to email the board in advance of our meetings, but if anyone shows up in person, we will allow for opportunity for anyone present to speak live. So we're just going to work out some of those logistics still, and we'll let the community know. If something changes to that, we'll also let you know. And of course, for anything, you can always email boe@brewsterschools.org. The email will come to the entire board and the superintendent. And anyone have anything else to say? I think we're good. We do not have executive session tonight, right? So we, yeah, I just need a motion. Yeah.
I just want to say real quick that I want to thank everyone for being very helpful these past 2 days. And I really appreciate everyone's welcoming, and I'm looking forward to this new year.
I would echo that as well. Although in addition to all the help that we've been getting, it's been a lot to take in, a lot of information over these this last week. A lot of information, but I think Daisy and I are getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's quick learning here. So thank you both for hanging in there with us and just jumping in and getting to work. Okay, so I need a motion then to adjourn our meeting.
Francine, I make a motion.
Thank you, Francine. And a second?
This is Scott. I'll make the second.
Thank you, Scott. And all those in favor, Carrie?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Francine?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Daisy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And myself, Sonia, yes. Motion passes 7 with 0 objections, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to all the staff that showed up and presented, and the community that dialed in. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.